Fallout 76 seemed to be trucking along just fine. I mean, hey, no news is good news, right? Well, reset the clock. They've done it again. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another industry report. This one is rather incredible. Bethesda have done, well, two things. Thing number one, the new patch. Big mess, we've got to talk about it. But the second thing is the worst thing, and that is sneaking in more microtransactions that in this case still are pay to win, which is really bad. So let's get into it. The latest update to Fallout 76, patch 11, has been a catastrophe. Over on the Fallout 76 subreddit, there is a roundup of issues found in the patch, and it's huge, and some of these highlights are ridiculous, including atomic shop items, that's the paid stuff with real money, being nigh unusable, like a greenhouse that can't grow things inside it, and a picket fence that can't be placed into the ground correctly because it has wrong collision. Legendary items are dropping at a severely reduced rate, if at all, and that's all while some enemies are being tagged as legendary when they aren't, and genuine legendary enemies are spawning less frequently. Damage is not being registered from high damage or high fire rate weapons, including things like sneak attacks. There are tons of issues with power armor, which was actually receiving a hyped up overhaul in this patch that would, quote, help the entire system function more smoothly. Well, features of this new power armor revamp include the game freezing and crashing when using the armor, the power armor disappearing after logout, the player having an invisible head when leaving the armor, and far more. Other bugs include a myriad of issues with the UI, returning bugs from past patches. Regarding weapons, there's even weapons accidentally healing enemies to full HP, and some areas in the game that just cause instant death or have no floor collision. And that's not even all of it. The game is freezing and crashing when you switch weapons or open the game's social tab. Basically, the entire game is significantly worse for most players here. In some cases, it is unplayable, and clearly in extremely frustrating ways. This game is struggling severely from a development perspective here, that much is obvious. When bugs start to reappear from patches ago, and the entire system overhaul ends up being significantly worse than what it was before, you just know there are significant dev issues. They obviously are not able to do enough testing internally for these patches, and to make things worse, according to the Fallout Twitter account, they had a planned hotfix to solve some of the issues of patch 11 immediately, but then they had to delay that and cancel their planned livestream. This kind of severe mistake is something that does cast doubt in their ability to actually make good in this game's future, which, that's a future where Todd Howard and Pete Hines both have been expressing what I'm just going to say is blind hope for. In fact, Pete Hines even said just last month this: we have to change and listen to what players are saying, and that's when he was talking about how they've learned so much from ESO's evolving experience, which does seem to have turned out quite well. Even if he and the team believe what he is telling the press and players, when you look at their actions, they clearly cannot or will not execute on it. And it's not like the community is not providing feedback either. They are diligently reporting bugs with lots of detail, as seen on the subreddit, where they genuinely are doing fantastic work in documenting these things, and no doubt it will be really helpful to the developers. But that's it, the team are basically not doing a lot to address player feedback with this game, and it's gotten so bad that players are beginning to ask for a public test server, arguing that test builds are a standard amongst PC games, and that they do genuinely want to help fix problems with this game. However, that would cost developer time to set up, and they maybe don't have the resources or the expertise to do it well. And that's not to mention that it's pretty much getting unpaid labor from your fans, which is a little bit iffy, but yeah, they're even struggling so hard that they can't set up unpaid fan labor. Thinking of another live game like Anthem, well, BioWare figured out it was a live game, it had a lot of moving parts, and it could do with more testing, so they opened up their public test server, and indeed it seems to have helped them a lot with the Cataclysm. It still does seem quite underwhelming, but at least has had some progression. Now, I think the thing that's worrying here from a developer perspective, just before we move on with the rest of this video, is there's just clearly fundamental issues here if older bugs are being reintroduced. It seems like they are developing off multiple forks of the game and they're sort of merging them back in together, but in a way where they are maybe merging in older versions of the game into the main live branch and are essentially doing over bug fixes, and maybe it's that some of those bug fixes aren't really bug fixes and were just workarounds that are now being broken, and that's why the core original bug is being exposed. And a lot of that is just that software development is really hard, especially when you set yourself up for essentially what is a big marathon doing a live game like this. But I suppose it could be that if you look at, say, Warframe, a game that's doing this well, they clearly are very well set up as a team and technologically to do that, whereas with Bethesda, it seems like they don't have those fundamentals set up to be actually able to execute on this right. Now, getting back onto the topic at hand, you basically have to wonder, can the studio be trusted in any capacity? Todd and Pete are both, in my view, at this stage, snake oil salesmen. They're promising the world, and they clearly are aware they just cannot deliver. They are also talking about how much they value their loyal community, and they are loyal, they are really good, these bug reports are amazing. But continually the same problems happen again and again, and that does show a lot of disrespect for the customers. There's no way that you can take Todd's quotes at face value. I mean, here's one of them. It's not how you launch, it's what it becomes. And I couldn't be prouder of the team that's worked on it. Now, I get being proud of the team. I am sure that those people mean the best. I am sure they are doing their best and working their hardest. But something's not working out well overall here, and for Todd to say what he often says, it does come off as being willfully delusional in order to prop up the product's public image to potential fans. And I think this is all really sad, knowing that fundamentally, a multiplayer Fallout game that just works, that would be a great thing. Now, that's the extremely damaging elements of this update. That's one thing. But there's something else, something that is worse. In a separate post to the patch notes, which felt kind of sneaky, by the way, they talked about the new items added to their cash shop. Now, like with the repair kits that they added in the past, they're adding small pay-to-win elements that players can pony up for. So you might be wondering, what is it this time? Well, the egregious one in this patch is the new utility item scrap kits. Now, these are one-time use items that you can use to scrap all of the junk that you're carrying around and send those components back to your stash. What does this do for you? Well, it clears your inventory up, gives you some more space, it does that on the spot, and that's very convenient. It saves a lot of time, very good, and according to a Reddit comment, it basically removes one of the game's major penalties for dying, which is losing your junk, because the components that are made from scrapping that junk are very, very valuable for crafting. Now, this is all for the low cost of 50 atoms per scrap kit, or 500 atoms for 15, so that's $5 for 15 uses of the scrap kits, with up to a 10% discount for atom bundle purchases. Now, they've done this before with the repair kits. It's the same thing. They're selling fixes to problems they've invented. This game is designed with item durability, inventory limits, and death penalties. And seemingly, if you don't want to deal with those elements of the game's design, it's only a few dollars to not have to deal with that problem, and you'll be able to earn enough atoms for a couple of them through the in-game challenges, like the dailies and the weekly challenges. So, you can buy a few of those scrap kits, maybe some of the repair kits when you're in there, and the new revamped Atomic Shop front page. Then, once you're in the door, well, you won't be able to live without those nice little convenience items, since they do remove pain points and smooth out the gameplay. And that indeed appears to be how the game is balanced. Honestly, it feels like you have a small, useful cheat code available, but limited uses of it that you can replenish with real money. They're on record saying that they would only have cosmetic-only options in the shop, and they've clearly went back on that. Like months ago when they were adding the repair kits, they said they had plans for more, with like the scrap kits and additional convenience items being talked about after they revealed their first idea with the scrap kits. Now, this was clearly a successful experiment with the repair kits, and they're continuing to invest in it with the scrap kits. And I just imagine we'll see more and more things be added here. And ultimately, that's what they're doing as a studio, and we cannot take this one game in isolation, because if you look at the rest of their games, they have these problems as well. I am sure that in Starfield, you will probably have something. I mean, I'm not saying something like the scrap and component system, but that's a game that'll have crafting. It's a game that'll have item durability, and if it doesn't, Elder Scrolls 6 certainly will. A lot of these problems in 76 are slightly more anteed up versions of things that have been in past Bethesda games. So logically, it's hard to say that these things will definitely not be in those future games, especially since, I mean, if you just take Atomic Shop, remove the repair kits and the scrap kits, and call it Creation Club, in many ways you've got something very similar to what is already in Fallout 4. and in Skyrim, and that makes me so worried about these games. And it's just so sad because you are seeing, Morrowind, Oblivion, Fallout 3, Skyrim, like really beloved games from a lot of people's childhood, but now that company is maturing, you could say, a lot of this rot just seems to be setting in with their games. Maybe now that they've seen how successful Fallout Shelter is, and hey, maybe Elder Scrolls Blades is actually doing well. But they seem to just be going in a bad direction. And I suppose what makes me sad about them from a moral perspective is that with all these things, players are roped into buying them thanks to, well, the psychological trickery, the game balance. It's using game design to create a problem to sell you a solution, which to me just sometimes feels like an abuse of game design in a way. And the Atomic Shop itself, it's egregious. It's selling a lot of cosmetics that use really aggressive single-day sales with exclusive bonus items. Like, if you want the aforementioned greenhouse, which doesn't let you plant things in it right now, you've got to buy the Green Thumb bundle of cosmetics for 1,500 atoms, which is about $15, but it's only available for a week. If you want either the Patriot Prime or Liberty Prime Power Armor skins, of course, big tie into the previous games and what people will recognize there, well, you've got to buy both. It's only a bundle for the equivalent of $18 for 2 skins. Of course, though, you can't buy $18 of atoms, you gotta buy $20 of atoms. So hey, may as well buy some, scrap kits with the spare atoms, eh? Clearly here, their words are just not lining up to their actions, right? This game, it does have potential, but they can't keep on going like this. And I'm especially worried about the state of the monetization. I mean, sure, this future NPC update, that could be really good. It could really make the game a lot better, but what's the state of the cash shop going to be at that point? And really, if you have Fallout 76 with a main story, with NPCs, and with the Atomic Shop, and all of its basically pay-to-win, time-saver-like things, at that stage, I mean, you've got something that's similar enough to Elder Scrolls 6 or Starfield, and it does make you wonder, will they put the same things into their future games, even if they are primarily single-player? I would like to have thought no, but the thing is, based on how little we can trust this company, I can no longer say that in good conscience, and that's really sad, coming from a place of loving what they've made in the past. So there you go, that is our little update to Fallout 76. I think it's important to hammer them on the microtransactions, and I mean, hey, a patch going this catastrophically wrong, I mean, it's interesting to talk about, but let's be real, it's also pretty funny. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you think about all of this stuff down below, and with that, I'll see you next time.